Let's go Minion Miners. Yo, what's up, people in the chat? Glad to see Minion Miners have some support. So this is exciting. This is the first game for everybody. I mean, I casted a game on Wednesday, and it was super back and forth. Seems like Division B at least seems to be relatively competitive. So already we got Ana banned, even with the nerfs from the patch yesterday or a couple days ago. People still think that she's a first bannable hero, and to be honest, I kind of agree. I mean, the W area reduction was definitely a big hit for her, but I think she's still one of the best healers in the game right now. And Lucio being banned as well. I'm surprised that we're not seeing a lot more focus on the tanks. I think especially recently in the meta, even more healers are getting banned. Man, it's so... We're going to have a choke for some healers, see some interesting picks. I mean, obviously we still have Malfurion, Tyrande, Rhaegar, all the pretty meta picks. There's some still meta picks still up, but yeah, like I was saying, I'm surprised people aren't focusing on the tanks. At least if you're going into a draft unsure of what the enemy team is doing, like I'm pretty sure these teams are, because neither team has really any match history behind them. So I'm surprised the tanks aren't more of a focus to get choked out in these early ban phases. Do you want game sound to be heard? Yeah, is the game sound actually not coming through? That's probably a big problem. Yeah, let me change that. It's probably my mic. Yeah, there we go. I think that should have fixed it. Thank you for letting me know in the chat, Gangrevious. So ETC and Rhaegar getting picked, and Jaina for buff Chen. ETC and Rhaegar, pretty safe picks, to be honest. Jaina as well, good on Dragonshire. Get those 4-man rotations, get the globes going. And then Alexstrasza for buff Chen as well. Definitely some weird healers coming out. Dahaka, obviously very good on Dragonshire with the global. Going to be able to contest the potential stage dive from ETC. That being said, Dahaka not quite as good of a 1v1 hero for holding the shrines. So you might see a more typical like 1v1 bully hero for Minion Miners. And Garrosh getting banned out. Honestly, not super on board with the Garrosh ban. I mean, they do have the follow-up CC with Dahaka, but it seems like right now buff Chen with the Alexstrasza pick doesn't want to be taking the fights instantly. So the Garrosh wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense in my opinion. That being said, Jaina follow-up damage and the Dahaka CC is pretty good with him. And then Kael'thas getting banned, of course. Even with that movement speed change in the recent patch, he's still quite an annoying hero. And then the Falstad, so more prioritization of the globals, and Tracer to follow it up. Tracer actually very good into Alexstrasza, very good into Dahaka, very good into Jaina. Dahaka and Jaina get the ice blocking burrow for maybe the pulse bomb damage, but just in general, there's a lack of CC and a lack of point and click damage for Tracer to worry about right now. So the Johanna will be rough for her, but I do think this Tracer has the potential to do a lot of work in this composition. And the last pick for buff Chen will be Vala, a hero that's actually pretty okay for Chen. Rhaegar is just a low priority healer compared to other options. I think right now Rhaegar just tends to be a very safe healer. He can get played in a lot of compositions. It's very hard for him to be a bad pick. He has some sustain healing, he has cleanse, he has burst healing with ancestral, and the last pickup being the Chromie for Minion Miners. And man, these drafts are super interesting right off the bat. We see a lot of heroes from Minion miners that don't normally see play. Tracer, Chromie, even the Rhaegar and ETC are pretty off-meta supports and tanks. And then the Falstad for the global will be up in the top lane against the Dahaka. Not a super easy matchup for Dahaka, if we're being honest. It's going to be real hard for him to hold the point. His gets outwave cleared by Falstad. They both have the global, so definitely going to be a hard time for Middle Bear on that Dahaka on the top lane. Tracer's easy to counterpick. You can see coming. Yeah, that's actually true. The Vala buffs are nothing to joke at, especially into Tracer. Like, you're not as likely... I think it's probably a lot easier for Vala to trade into Tracer now. You're not just going to die to a Pulse Bomb. You have a little bit more health to work with. Especially pre-16. I think Vala probably should be okay in the 1v1. That's true. Rhaegar does like the CC. That's a good point. Which is probably pretty relevant considering they have the Chromie pick, so CC would be really beneficial for them. But right now, we got Urdak on the Chromie, Westgraw on Tracer. What is that? Mac of Cheese on Rhaegar, and him, my bow on ETC. And then for Buff Chen, we got Thistledew on Jaina. SVX on the Johanna, Middle Bear on Dahaka, Sosa on Vala, and Kage TY on Alexstrasza. Reported. I'm not quite sure what's going on in the chat, but you're figuring it out. Let me actually hide the webcam real quick. So right off the bat, I think the rotations are going to want to be a lot faster on the side of Buff Chen. They want to get that Jaina fed. They don't want to stick around, take a bunch of unnecessary Chromie damage. And they've got to be a little bit more on point with their 4-man, considering I do think that Falstad kind of destroys this lane in the top. That being said, it's not going to be as easy if he just lets Dahaka walk up and drag him. Meanwhile, down there, the 4-man continuing, Vala rotating to pick up those globes. And Chromie hoping to do as much poke as she can.
You think yourself worthy to wield the Dragon Knight's power? Prove it. Take control of the shadows.
So already we see Buff Chen starting their siege camp, and Minion miners doing the same. Taking these siege camps is really important, just to get that EXP lead, making sure they're staying on parity with the other team, especially on Dragonshire, where the objectives aren't necessarily getting taken right away. And right now Johanna getting a little bit caught out, but she should have her Iron Skin, she should be okay. And Rhaegar actually stepping forward for that doggo attack, almost loses his life for it. 15 health on Rhaegar, that's a little bit absurd. But he should be okay. Meanwhile, Falstad definitely bullying Dahaka in this top lane. Essence gets popped, but they should be okay up there. And like I said, Buff Chen should have control of this bottom lane with the Jaina and the Johanna. It's just a little bit better sustained than what the Rhaegar and EQC can offer in the early game. But definitely keep an eye out for when the heroics come out. It's also worth noting that Tracer has her Pulse Bomb. She does have a little bit of access to burst damage for the Jaina and the Vala, two pretty squishy heroes for Buff Chen. And Alexstrasza may be taking a lot of damage. There's that Pulse Bomb coming out, and that's kind of what I was talking about. Minion miners has to be really careful about how they rotate in between this top and bottom lane through this triangle, or mid and bottom lane, excuse me. But Jaina pushing bottom with that siege camp, but the experience is still even. Falstad's still kind of destroying the Dahaka on the top lane. He doesn't have control of the point right now, which is a little bit surprising, but he should get it back relatively soon. While Chen is trying to make a push for this Dragon Knight, but ETC has captured the shrine on bottom, so they should be okay. And Tracer's forced to recall there, getting caught in the time trap by her own Chromie. But they should be okay. ETC's done a good job of holding down the bot lane. And both teams are just going to rotate a little bit safely. Falstad moving back up to the top lane. Still out of mana once again. He is the broad build so far. It looks like that not Paradox Falstad kind of toolbox build. And he's holding on to the top lane as long as he can. But it looks like Dahaka will get it back. Will Chromie be able to channel in time? No, she won't. Falstad trying to bully Dahaka as much as possible. Does he have Essence? I don't think he does. 30, actually. So, Dahaka should be able to hold that point for a pretty long while. Bot lane rotation is in the favor of Minion Miners right now. They're holding onto the bot lane pretty well. The Chromie poke is actually getting a lot of value. You can see already she has, what is that, 8,000 hero damage? Definitely way more than everybody else in the game right now. So that's how Minion Miners are getting their advantages at the moment. Both teams still maintaining relatively equal on XP though. They're both capping their siege camp when it's up. It looks like maybe Minion Miners are getting a little bit aggressive here. ETC scouted out Vala in this camp, maybe wants to try to contest, but I think he's just going to walk away and let them cap it. Meanwhile, on the top lane, Falstad getting a little low. I'm honestly very surprised that this lane isn't going in Falstad's favor. Just having played the matchup myself, I know that it's very hard for Dahaka to get in range to land his drag, and the only time that he can get that is when the Falstad gets really greedy with his damage. Falstad just needs to trade a little bit better with his health pool, and he should be okay. But the bot lane getting taken back by Buff Chen, while maybe Falstad getting dragged on the top lane a bit. And just that little snapshot there is maybe showing you why the Falstad isn't doing as well as you might expect, losing all of his damage on that on the Burrow. It is worth noting that because he is Bribe and he has that W talent, and meanwhile Rhaegar gets deleted on the bottom lane with the help of Jaina and the Vala. And I think Buff Chen is going to make a play for Dragon Knight. They should be able to get it. They were actually so close to channeling it on the top lane, but it wasn't good enough. So meanwhile, they're going to siege down the mid wall here. Chromie to do her best to get as much poke on that DK as possible. And level 10s are here for Buff Chen. So ETC is going to slide in, maybe look for a pick on Vala, but his team doesn't want to fight. They don't have their heroics yet. Now they are picked up, and we will see what comes out. Dahaka has the Isolation, Jaina with the Water Elemental, Life Binder for Alex Straza. Everything else is relatively normal. ETC does pick up the Mosh Pit. There isn't a hell of a lot of interrupt on the enemy team, just the Johanna really, and maybe the Dahaka Isolation. The Vala ult as well, but Mighty Gust is not picked up from Falstad. Instead, it will be Hinterland Blast. And the Dragon Knight has leveled them about a half a level lead for Buff Chen. And even with that half a level lead, they think they might want to contest this bottom camp. Johanna's walking in. Looks like Dahaka's burrowing in on the backside, but a big mosh pit from ETC. Nobody is there to interrupt. Unfortunately, the damage wasn't quite there either, but it will stun the team long enough for Tracer to do some work. Unfortunately, she falls, but Dahaka and Johanna are going to hold on to this point as long as they can. If they can manage to cap it, the spell armor buff should be enough for them to win this fight, and the burrow from Dahaka and the sustain from Johanna and Alex Straza was enough for them to hold on to that point long enough to get a full 4-man wipe. You know, I can't help but think that that Minion Miners took that 4v5 with Falstad in the top lane, and it probably, I think the second they saw the Dahaka burrow, they should have done their best to leave. I think even knowing that the Dahaka burrow was a potential should have been enough for them to leave the fight, but they do lose 4 heroes because of it, and the bottom lane. Fortunately, Falstad was able to push the top lane and make sure that They didn't fall too far behind in XP, but they do trade the front wall up top for the fort on bottom. Meanwhile, level 13 is picked up for Buff Chen. Hawken in a little bit of a pickle here. He's going to try and walk to the bush to get out, and he will not make it. I'm not quite sure what that invade was all about. I guess they did have 13, but somewhere along the line, the communication was not there. And with that pick, Tracer is going to try and invade this camp on the bottom. She does get a fair amount of damage, but the camp has already been picked up. I'm not quite sure why Minion Miners are staying here, especially with the wall stats still top. So the camps will trade, and level 13 is now here for Minion Miners. And they do have control of both shrines right now. I think they might make a play for the DK. Johanna is here, but she probably doesn't have a big enough health pool to stall. She does get the blind out, but it is not enough. Chromie's main is channeling the DK. And here we go, DK in the favor of Minion Miners. Jaina, having finished clearing the siege camps on bottom, will rotate up to try and get that DK cleared. But it looks like Minion Miners are just going to rotate down to the bottom wave. I think I like this play. Bottom wave, technically, probably the most optimal lane to push out for Dragonshire, just because of the way that the camps are set up. But there is a fair amount of poke with the Vala damage and the Jaina to be able to burst down the Dragon Knight, so they aren't going to get a whole lot of it. Looks like just the front wall mid and the front wall bot as well. Meanwhile, Falstad and Dahaka are just trading health pools over and over again. Dahaka's going to rotate down, maybe look for something cheeky on the Tracer or the Rhaegar, but he has no support. The DK is actually still up. And Falstad is okay. Avoids the drag. And there we go. With that DK for Minion Miners, they were able to catch up on the XP a little bit. Unfortunately, Buff Chen is still going to hit level 16 before them. But meanwhile, Johanna taking a bunch of damage, kind of for no reason too. Maybe to grab the globe for her teammates, but she doesn't have an Iron Skin anymore, and that's a really big mosh pit that should lead to a triple kill. The Chromie damage is definitely enough. Johanna has no Iron Skin. She'll probably fall as well. The Dahaka burrow was incredibly late, and that's another mosh pit that has just been teamed by winning. Dahaka doing his best to stall out here, actually doing a really good job. They're taking a lot of towers. They have no minions. The ETC should be perfectly fine getting out, doing a good job of taking those towers for his team. Falstad flying top again, and I can't help but feel like Buff Chen is maybe not playing around these mosh pits well enough. They do have a fair amount of interrupts. No, not a fair amount, but they do have interrupts. Johanna has her Iron Skin. Even Vala with the Rain of Vengeance should be good enough to interrupt that mosh pit. So maybe Soso needs to play a little bit more careful, making sure that he doesn't get caught in that mosh pit with Johanna. Siege camp picked up for Minion Miners. They are maybe looking to invade the siege for the side of Buff Arthas. Both teams have level 16, so... but unfortunately, not quite everyone is there yet for Buff Chen, and the camp will go to Minion Miners. They should be able to walk away just fine. Meanwhile, Falstad has sieged in the top lane against Dahaka, and now that lane is going a little bit more in his favor. Now that he has that CDR from the... he actually didn't pick the CDR. Interesting. Just full W build into a Dahaka who can just press the E button to get rid of W. I'm kind of beginning to see why the lane wasn't going in his favor. But he is taking control of the top lane, but Dahaka will not be able to get the Shred back, and that is another DK for Minion Miners. And it seems like their general map presence is just a little bit stronger right now. Falstad bullying Dahaka in the top lane, even with maybe an improper build for that matchup, is doing just fine. So it goes to show how one-sided that lane can be. And it'll be a pretty strong 5-minute push here. I think we might see them rotate down to the bot lane, but maybe not since the wave isn't pushed out. Oh, no, they will go. And they're just going to get that bot front wall. It's maybe a little bit of a better win condition than the mid front wall, even without a minion wave here to help them. But maybe we're going back to the mid wave. I think they realize that this DK isn't doing a hell of a lot more for them. That being said, they do have a Mosh Pit and an Ancestral, so I wouldn't be surprised if Buff Chen oversteps a little bit trying to make this defense happen, that we could see some pretty interesting engages. And the front wall on mid basically goes down. There's one tower still at half health, but Minion Miners are going to back off and just rotate around, look for their level 20. They don't want to fight just yet. I think they'd rather get some experience. Tracer having picked up her big power spike with sleight of hand. Does want to make sure that she has her pulse bomb up. And kind of an interesting rotation here from Buff Chen. I think they might be trying to get a pick on Falstad. Johanna shows and Dahaka's up there, and Falstad nopes on out of there real quickly. I think his team senses that everybody is off the map and is in no way going to try to contest this. So Buff Chen sieging down the top fort. They are going to back because they see that Minion Miners have been seen that rotation on top, and they decided to push into the keep. But Falstad tells his team that they're all backing, and they decide to back off and wait for level 20 before they want to take a fight. Falstad going to use his bribes on the camp up here to power up his W a little bit. And maybe with that Bruiser camp on top, they're going to make a play for something on the bottom lane. They have a pretty strong control of the map right now, Minion Miners. They do want to look for this fight. Before Buff Chen is able to get level 20. And already they have two camps pushing into Haka. Maybe got caught out here. He does have the E. And the level 16 burrow to get out. And they've snuffed out a camp being taken on the top lane, but it looks like nobody will fall. The camp actually manages to get captured for Buff Chen, and that was a nice little exchange for them. They managed to not lose any heroes. They got a little bit of XP from the camp and a little bit more from that wave mid, and level 20 is pretty close for them, maybe 30 seconds or so. There's a pretty big wave for them on bottom that should get them about halfway to where they need to be. And doesn't look like Minion Miners is in any position to fight them with Rhaegar being on the top lane. That being said, at some point that top lane does need to be responded to. It is a Bruiser camp. It's going to be pushing into the keep on top. And I think Buff Chen knows this, and that's why they're maybe giving up this altar on the top. Dahaka has burrowed to the top lane to capture the top altar, now that we've seen Falstad bottom, and they're just going to delay until they hit level 20. And I really like this play from Buff Chen. They realize that they need their storm talents, and they are just doing their best. Dahaka doing a good job sensing the rotation coming down. The Rhaegar totem is there, but it won't be enough to pick him off. ETC slides in, maybe looking for a mosh pit, but he doesn't find it. Dahaka maybe getting a little bit too greedy. He doesn't have a ton of essence, and that's a huge mosh pit and a huge hinterland blast that instantly destroys 3 heroes. Jaina will be sure to fall. Johanna soon afterwards, and that should be game. They're going to push in the top lane. Assuming that this push is coordinated, it should be enough to end the game. I don't think it should be a problem with the Tracer, the Chromie, and the Falstad damage. And that is going to be game 1, going to Minion Miners. And honestly, all of this game was because of the ETC. That mosh pit was insane. I think maybe it was a bolt of the storm that caused it. I didn't quite see what happened, because the Haka was almost getting picked on the backside. But honestly, the mosh pits were what won Minion Miners this game.